See if they have the interwebs in Texas.
Yeah, I don't know. Kayla, can you hear us? Maybe still connecting.
Yeah, connections have been so bad with, like, I think my girls are, well, they might be done with school at this point. It's been really rough. Their Zoom meetings and everything out is cutting out all the time. But I think those meetings have, like, 30 or so kids on there.
Yeah.
So it makes it a little bit more difficult.
And then are they doing just like traditional school but from home?
Well, yeah. I mean, they're usually done like by 1 o'clock somehow, and on Wednesdays they start at 9:45 and are done at a half an hour later. So it's supposed to be traditional, but I don't know what the hell they're doing, man. It's they're barely going to school, but they're still doing it.
Hey, what's up, Kaylor?
Uh-oh.
Still.
No audio still.
Mm-hmm. But he's got the full beard, though. That's the important thing.
That's really country.
Yeah, maybe tap the screen and see if you can turn your microphone on or connect to it or something. I really got to learn how to use Zoom through a phone. Just so I can.
Now it's connected.
There we go.
There we go. Oh, the video goes. All right.
There
I think
we go. And then he muted.
Kayla, are you there?
He's there, but
yeah,
there
yes,
go.
I'm here. Okay.
All right.
Hey.
Jeez. Okay. Hey guys.
What's up, Kaylor?
How are y'all?
Good, man. How are you?
Oh, I'm hanging in there.
Yeah, good to see you, bud.
Yeah, you too. It's been a little while.
I know. This looks good, man.
Thank you. I let it grow. Usually my strategy is like I just let it grow out until it gets to about this long or a little bit longer. And I get tired of taking care of it, so I'll just shave it off and start
That's
over.
usually I can usually try and grow whatever I can grow until it gets like super itchy, and then I'm like, fuck this, I'm done.
Yeah, especially with all the masks and stuff.
Oh no, yeah. How's everything on your end? You doing good?
Yeah, definitely better. Things are starting to get a little more exciting again and stuff. So
that's awesome. Hell yeah.
Yeah. How's everything out there? How's the baby?
Baby's good. She's a crying mess, but I mean I think that's what babies are supposed to be. But
right.
everything's good. We're starting to get to open back up a little bit.
Okay.
There you are. So everything's cool. Is Texas still its own little world and nothing matters?
Well, it was that way until about July, and then the mask mandate started and whatnot. And half the people take it seriously, and the other half really don't. But I guess it hasn't been too bad,
Okay. But you've been able to get to work and everything. That hasn't been a huge pause.
No, not really. Initially, I did lose some online clients that didn't have access to a gym for a little while, but for the most part, everyone's able to train nowadays. And a lot of the people that I had online, they like went through the trouble of getting their own online setup or at home setups and whatnot. So
yeah, awesome. Well, cool. So I'm sure you got the emails and everything. So we're just gonna. We're recording already. We're just going to kind of start to chat a little bit. And the whole goal here is basically to have these people kind of come in, and we're basically just having a friendly conversation, a conversation we would have, any other day of the week. And we'll clown around a little bit. We'll have some fun. And then, we'll try and ask some questions and, make you look smart and pretty, and we'll be all good, man.
Okay. Sounds like a plan.
Josh, is that about right? Are we all good?
Yep. Yeah, we're good. Andrew, we can go ahead and start bringing some of the guests on. Kaylor, what we've been doing, it's been kind of was started as unofficial with Ed Cohn, but now it's an official tradition as we start bringing the guests on.
Okay.
If you have any good poop stories, now would be a great time to share if you have any good ones.
Man.
Whether they're yours or one that you've heard of or one that you were this is kind of a bad one, but a part of, that you.
Okay. Well, I was kind of sick like 2 weeks ago, so I already don't feel very good. It's already hard to kind of take care of myself. And this isn't my poop story. I mean, I was involved in it, but it's more so my dog's poop story.
There you go.
So I got this puppy a little while back, and he's great. But I felt bad that I wasn't able to play with him for a little while because I was feeling so bad for a couple of days. So when I went to the store, I got him some, extra bones and stuff. And then like I just have never seen an animal poop so much. And he doesn't, and I mean, he had several accidents in the house and whatnot because they'd be like overnight or something, and he never poops in like one spot. He'll like drop a little bit and start walking. So I mean my whole apartment has had poop on it somewhere at some point. So when you say poop, that's like the first place my mind went to. I can't think of anything horribly embarrassing for myself, but yeah.
Well, that's any poop story is a good poop story as we kind of go.
Yeah.
We've had a couple of really dynamite ones. If maybe we'll try and send you the link, but we had a Matt Wenning talk about actually having to go to the ER and had a lady kind of shove a couple of fingers up there to help him kind of get some expired protein.
Okay.
Basically a brick that had developed. And then we had Stan talk about pooping in his brand new RV. His little boy went in there and there was no paper and they didn't know how to like empty it or anything. So it was a brand new. And then Eddie had a dynamite one where he couldn't even make it up to his apartment and he just shit on a rug that was next to his next to his car in his parking lot and had to roll it up and then throw it away on his way up to his own apartment.
Okay.
So we've had a couple of.
I have one actually involving myself. I was maybe like 7 years old. Yeah, I was in first grade, and we had gone on this school trip, and it was like something where your parents go with you, and there's only like a couple of us and whatnot. It was called the McDonald Observatory because we're learning about space this year in this program. So we go out there. And I had just been feeling bad all day, and I'm an awkward little kid. I'm still kind of awkward to this day, but I'm like real shy, so I didn't want to use the public bathroom or anything. So my mom and my sister they continued with the group, and I ended up staying in the car because I was like feeling so bad, and I just didn't know where to poop. So I had to just like I pooped like just in the parking lot, like just kind of pulled my pants down, just like a 7-year-old, and I just pooped and left it there, and then got back in the car like nothing had happened and waited for everybody. And then I didn't have like toilet paper or anything, but I don't remember it bothering me that much at the time because I was like a gross little 7-year-old. But yeah. So I remember pooping in a couple of random places throughout my life. And that was just because I was like too embarrassed to like go find a public bathroom or tell somebody I had to go because I was just not in a comfortable environment for myself. So
is that still something that you battle with? Can you go and poop in a public toilet now?
Oh yeah. I like prefer not to just because I like to, it goes a little bit better if I can wait till I get home because I can just kind of relax, give myself a little bit more time and stuff. I don't have to feel rushed. So
home field advantage, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Well, good. Well, hey, man, thanks for taking some time. Appreciate you. We're going to, as people kind of keep strolling in, I think we're going to go ahead and play you a video from Mark, and then we'll kind of start the official interview and kind of chat for about 45 or so, and then we'll go from there, man. Sound good?
All right. Sounds good.
Awesome.
Cool. So we're going to start first with a quick shout from Matt Wenning. As soon as I find it, there we go. And then we'll go from here.
Do you have any questions or anything that you just want to say to Kaylor Woolham?
Kaylor Woolham, the dude's a goddamn animal. I really like that guy. He's very, very humble. And what I like about it is he posts his squats and his benches, which he knows he's not the strongest at.
Right.
And whether he ever becomes a world-class bencher or squatter, who knows? But he's proven enough to me that he is willing to work hard and willing to work smart and willing to work through his deficiencies, that he has all the respect in the world for me.
Bam. And then we got one from Mr. Mark Bell.
All right, boys and girls, it's time to announce my next super friend. This super friend is a super freak, and this is Kaylor Woolham that I'm going to be talking to you about today. Kaylor sent me a video a few years back And he did his 705-pound deadlift, and he did it pretty effortlessly. And this is he slid in my DMs. He sends me this message, and I'm watching the video, and I'm trying to critique it, and I'm like, I don't see anything wrong with this 705 pull, and it looks pretty flawless. So I wrote him back, and I was like, hey, kid, you know, you look a lot stronger than me, so I would say, you know, maybe you can, pull the weight instead of jerk the weight a little bit more. That would be the only thing that I kind of noticed, because in the video he kind of jerked the weight off the ground. I think it was like 3 weeks later he sends me a 755 pull. I think maybe a few months go by, he sends me an 805 pull, and a few months go by and he sends me like an 854 deadlift. The numbers just kept going up astronomically, and he just kept getting bigger, and he just kept getting stronger. And I was just like, why are you sending me these videos? I don't know how to deadlift the way that you know how to deadlift. Kaler Willem's one of the greatest deadlifters in the world, one of the most explosive athletes that you'll probably ever see. I've actually would put him up there against some of the best deadlifters of all time. He's broken all-time world records in the deadlift. Kaler has successfully deadlifted over 900 pounds, and he's going to be on his way to smashing more all-time world records probably here soon in the future. And he's also moved on and matured a lot, and he's also been coaching and assisting a lot of people. So the information that he's going to give you guys here exclusively at markbell.com, you guys are going to absolutely love it. The other thing that Kaler has done is he's gotten jacked, because that's a big part of this game is getting big and putting on size. And so hopefully Kaler will also share some of those secrets with you on how he's gotten so big, because that's a huge part of the game. He was able to deadlift 705 and 800 and so on, but to break those all-time world records, if you don't have the size on you to do so, you're probably going to fold up. So guys, without further ado, here's Kaler Willem.
Hey!
Hey.
Very good. So, Kaler, hopefully you enjoyed a couple of nice words from Matt and Mark.
It was very kind. Very
yeah.
kind.
Well, you know what? It's really interesting. I never know what Mark's going to say. I don't think anyone ever actually really knows what Mark is going to say, not even Mark himself. But I remember when you sent him that video, because he sent me that video and go, what the hell do I say to this kid? I was just like, I don't know. I mean, he's fucking strong as hell. He just needs to get a little bit bigger. So I was actually kind of impressed that he remembered that that's kind of, you know, how all of our friendships kind of began, you sliding into his DMs and everything. But, you know, as we've gotten to know you, there's actually a lot of history. You didn't just, you know, accidentally trip and fall and, you know, start to deadlift 700 pounds and start throw it into people's DMs. Can you give us a little bit of, you know, a history lesson on Kaler Willem? Because I know you're very lucky in Texas, you know, powerlifting is an actual like school sport and everything. And this is something that you've been doing for a long time. And I'm not sure a ton of people really know that. So can you kind of give us a little bit of just a peek into who you are growing up, you know, going through some sports, finding powerlifting, and, you know, kind of get us up to speed to, you know, to where we are a little bit. And we'll ask questions kind of as we get there.
Okay. Well, I guess like for as long as I can remember, being strong is something that's been like important to me, I guess, you know, and I've always just been super into all the superheroes, and especially the ones that were like super strong and lifting stuff and whatnot. So I've always just had like an interest for it. I've always thought it was like kind of cool. And then everybody in my family, especially on the mom side, is just like incredibly active. So I've always been super active doing something. So exercising and just being up and about is just kind of something that I've always been into. And then getting into junior high, it was like the first time we ever really lifted weights with the school. And I just remember like how many other kids were stronger than me and stuff. And it just like felt bad. You know, I guess I'll mention that I did play football and baseball growing up and whatnot. So all the lifting was to kind of get better at football. That's like the way we did it at the school and whatnot. But I remember my favorite part of football practice was always just like lifting the weights and whatnot. And I hated that, you know, I had friends that were stronger than me and whatnot. So I had a weight set at home that I started using when I was 12. My dad had got it a couple of years back and didn't really, you know, use it too much. So I started using it in the garage all the time, just doing bench press every day and just whatever I could figure out to do to exercise, because I liked the way it made me feel. You know, I liked getting the, you know, pumping my muscles and feeling like I was getting bigger. And, you know, every time I got stronger, it was just like that much more addicting. And by the time 8th grade came around, I had heard that there was a powerlifting team in the school. Like somebody had explained it to me. So like when we get to high school, we were able to start doing competitive powerlifting for the school. So as soon as I heard about it, I was just in. So I had known about it like a whole year before I even got involved. And as soon as it was ready to go freshman year, I signed up and I was there. So that's kind of how I got introduced into powerlifting, if that kind of answers that question for you.
Yeah. So when you were just kind of on your own, you said you're just kind of chasing the pump dragon, as they say. Did you have a program? Where did you get it? Did dad help you? I mean, what was it? Or did you just go in there and just play around?
I just went in there and played around. I was 12, so I think what I would do would be like max out on bench like every day, and then just do like, I don't know, the bar as many times as I could, or just something for some reps. And then I would do some curls and some push-ups. And I didn't really squat or deadlift because we always had to squat at the school. And then I didn't know what deadlift was at the time. Like, I didn't even consider it since I was so young.
And then when you got into freshman of high school, you were on the powerlifting team. What was training like? What was that like? Because to be honest with you, I think like Texas and Pennsylvania and maybe one other state, actually has this as a school sport. Who was running it? What was your program? Was it still you just go in there and do your own thing, or what was that like?
Our coach would like kind of tell us what to do, but nothing was like what you would call a program or anything. We would just go in there and one day was squat and then the next day was bench, and one day was deadlift, or sometimes we would do more than one lift on one day. And then just go in there because half the time we were already lifting during the school day at football practice, and then or just for our athletic period. And then after school we'd have like powerlifting practice again. So we'd just kind of go in there and lift, learn how to use because we did single ply in high school. That's just kind of what it was back then. So, we didn't know any different. So we just had to kind of get used to wearing our, bench shirts and squat suits and practice wrapping each other's knees and stuff. And yeah, and in Texas, it is like super competitive. I mean, like the competition was just really, really good. And there's just like a lot of really strong kids. I mean, even to this day, like there's some really, really impressive things coming out of the Texas high school powerlifting.
Yeah, I think there was, what was it, a couple years ago, there was that kid who was squatting over 900 pounds raw for a little bit.
Yeah, he squatted 1,000. Joseph Pena.
Yes.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, we see stuff like that now, and it's like.
And it's amazing. It was in it was in a gym in like a shitty gray rack with with different kind of plates on the end. It was it looked kind of janky, but I mean it was he crushed it. The lift was amazing. It just looked like this was thrown together. And just for me, I've never seen a Texas high school powerlifting meet. What were those like? What did they look like? Tell us about them.
They are chaos. Okay, so there'll be several because a lot of kids do it, which is great. But like if I had to do a meet like this, like I don't know. Like I think what we're used to now is we would just hate it. But sometimes there can be upwards of 200 kids in one competition, maybe sharing like 6 platforms. Because even to this day, like I go and judge the meets and stuff, so I still got to go see like how they're ran and whatnot. So everybody has to use like the platform to warm up on, and maybe there's like 30 or 40 kids on each platform trying to warm up somehow. So nobody really gets to like warm up, and then the flights are 40 kids long, so it's it takes a little while. But yeah, so. I just like couldn't imagine doing something like that. Now it even stresses me out when I go to judge, even though I'm like not there to lift or anything. I just like, but the kids don't care. They don't know any different. So I guess it's all right.
Do you remember your first freshman powerlifting meet?
I do. Yeah.
What were your numbers?
Well, I didn't bench or deadlift because I bombed out on squat with like 215 pounds or something. So that's how that went. And I was ready. Yeah. I'm glad
I picked a really good one to talk about.
Yeah.
How about
I think it is a good one because like, I was almost ready to quit after, this meet. Like I was like so embarrassed. I didn't want to do it anymore. I didn't want to go back to practice because I was like embarrassed and stuff. And then, for whatever reason, I decided to like stick with it, and actually ended up doing pretty good with it that year. So.
Do you own any records at your high school?
Yes. I'm not sure if anybody keeps a track of state records, but I know I have some like regional records. So for all the schools in this area of Texas, I have the total at 165 still, I believe, and that was like 1380. And then I have the deadlift at 580, and those are regional records that I have in Texas.
So those were all done single ply, yes?
Yes.
So I think it's kind of interesting that your introduction into the sport was geared lifting. When did you decide geared lifting wasn't for you and you started to do some raw lifting? Help us, kind of understand that transition for you, maybe out of high school and then, kind of what happened there.
Well, so I thought that that's what powerlifting was, because I guess even at the time, which was like 2010, that was like really, there was only geared lifting. So I didn't know I had another option, like, at all. So, we'd always lift raw for our football practice and stuff, and then put on the gear when we would do the powerlifting practice. So after high school, I thought I was just done with powerlifting, and I was just I was like just lifting raw, in the gym training and stuff, trying to get big, trying to get a little bit stronger and whatnot. And I didn't even know powerlifting was like still a thing. And then once I found out that, there's all these meets or these federations and stuff, once I kind of looked into it a little bit, and I learned that, they don't wear squat suits or knee wraps. I was like, well, that's great. It's like, now I don't have to worry about doing all this stuff again. And that's kind of like what had got me back into it. Especially knowing that everything was raw, just using the knee sleeves and a belt, and that's it,
So, did you like your geared lifting in high school? I mean, I know it's kind of all you had and you didn't know any better. Were you a fan of any of the equipment at all?
Yeah, I guess I like the squat suit and knee wraps just because it's fun to like lift a little bit more weight. And it was fun to do and whatnot, but I never really liked the bench shirt very much because kind of the way it worked is we had to just take whatever equipment the school had available for us. So I never had a bench shirt that like fit me right. So mine were always just like super narrow, and I feel like no matter what, I couldn't like get my elbows out like at all, and it was just, they're horribly uncomfortable. So I had to just wear like a really big bench shirt that would basically make it to where whatever I could bench press raw, touch and go, I was able to now do with a pause if I wore the shirt. So that was kind of all I ever got out of the shirt, just because I never had a good one that fit me.
You know what? I never thought about that. So you were just like football practice. You were wearing, somebody else's pads and a different helmet. You were wearing hand-me-down gear from how old were these, shirts, suits, and everything?
Oh, years.
Did you get anything new each year?
I think I got a new squat suit, I want to say my senior year. And a couple of us, like if we were like a little bit better on the team or we were seniors or something, some of us would get like a piece of equipment. And I want to say I did get my own squat suit that kind of fit, but even then it wasn't tailored. It was definitely made for somebody with like shorter legs and, like an average powerlifting build. But
Sure.
it was still better than what I had before. And then the knee wraps and stuff, man, you should have seen them. They were, I don't even know how old those things were, but they were handed down year to year to year. So
that's I didn't even think about that. That's kind of gross. But
yeah,
knowing what powerlifting equipment smells like.
Yeah.
All right, so now we're through high school and you're starting to learn about raw lifting. What, and when did something click for you? When did you figure out like, oh, I'm fairly good at this. This is, when did you finally start pulling sumo? When did things start to kind of click for you and you figure out? Because you went through a couple of hard times bombing out in your first meet and not necessarily knowing if you liked it or what you wanted to do. When did it really kind of click for you and you're like, all right, this is something that I want to keep doing, I could be good at, etc.
So I guess the second meet I did my freshman year kind of like encouraged me to keep doing it, because I was able to qualify for regionals. So I was like top 10 in this area of Texas. So that meant that I technically earned a varsity letter as a freshman. So I felt like pretty good about that. And then I just liked lifting too and whatnot. And I ended up doing a little bit better my sophomore year. I actually made it to the state competition. So, that's even more exciting. And then the next year I was like kind of hurt, my back had been hurt. So I ended up not lifting my junior year. And then about halfway through my junior year, I had started feeling like a little bit better. And then I made the decision that the following year, my senior year, I wasn't going to play football because I just wanted to lift. So that's like when I had gotten very serious, like I am now, about my lifting and, diet as much as I can and whatnot. So I started getting incredibly serious about it when I was about 17, halfway through that school year. And I kind of just built myself up as much as I could until the following powerlifting season, the next year. And I had made it to the state meet again that year, and that meet went terribly for me, but I was one of the better ones in the state. So, you know, I never wanted to like stop doing it, I guess. But you know, so high school ended. I'm done with all the meets and stuff. I always missed lifting, but I still trained like a powerlifter in the gym, like as much as I could and whatnot. And then, you know, about 2 years later, one day I kind of just got the idea to look around for these meets, and I was able to find one. And I didn't know how serious I was going to be about it. I kind of just wanted to go do it for fun. So I signed up for like a little push-pull meet. So I go to that meet, and I ended up like deadlifting more than anybody else. And that was like the first time I had deadlifted 700 pounds ever. And I was still pulling conventional at the time. So that was really encouraging. I was like, okay, well, you know, it feels good that, you know, I might be able to do better than some other people at this. And it was just like a fun thing for me to go and do. So I signed up for another one about 2 months later, and I'm still pulling conventional at the time. And, you know, so, you know, I do my bench, and it's another push-pull meet just because I wanted to do a little bit better than I did last time. And then when we get to the deadlift, you know, I had missed my second attempt conventional. I think it was like 711 pounds. And then, hey, sorry, my dogs are going crazy. So I had missed it conventional. And then I just decided to try to pull it sumo because I had been practicing sumo a little bit more. I guess I need to backtrack a little bit. I did do sumo all the way through high school. That was the first way I learned how to deadlift. We were not showed how to do a conventional deadlift in high school.
Wow.
So, and then right after high school is when I started pulling conventional, and that slowly got to where it was like better than my sumo because I just kind of stopped doing sumo. But anyway, so I was at the meet, and I'd been pulling conventional for the last couple of years and whatnot. And then just for the third attempt, I decided to pull it sumo because I missed it my second attempt. I ended up getting it like really easy. And I was like, okay, so I'm still definitely better at sumo. So that's kind of what led me to my transition back into sumo and getting more serious about doing more meets and stuff. And that's like when I was like, you know, I want to do this for real. You know, I want to do like a full meet. So that was, I want to say that second meet was probably about October. And then I ended up doing my first full meet back about February. So it was just a couple months after that.
So let's just talk about sumo for a little bit. Is your technique, your style of sumo pull, the way that you were taught to pull in high school?
No, we're kind of just taught to like squat down and pick it up.
Okay. So talk about the evolution of your, you know, figuring out like sumo and then, you know, stumbling back upon it and then really starting to dial it in and dial it up.
Okay. So I guess the connection I had made in my brain at that meet was that I had gotten a lot better at, I had gotten better at pulling sumo without like training it too much. And that's just how it was like working at the time. So if I noticed if I had just got better at pulling conventional, then my sumo would kind of by default be better as well. So I kind of just like followed that idea, kept trying to get a little bit better at conventional, and then just practicing my technique for sumo and stuff, and then kind of, you know, getting used to handling weight in that sumo position whenever it was ready to start getting ready for like a competition. So yeah. Is that kind of answer that? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's,
okay.
You know, that's, you know, it's oddly enough, you know, when we started working together, that's something that I always do with people is, you know, we don't stick to one thing. We try and make sure that we do, you know, a little bit of both. And I think for, in the history of powerlifting, there's very few people who have been able to lift the amount of weight, both sumo and conventional, that you have been. And I know you take it as a real, you know, badge of honor, and you took like probably the last couple of years, you know, you really had a chip on your shoulder and you wanted to come out there, and you ended up you pulled like what, 860 conventional?
I pulled 909 conventional a couple months ago.
Yeah. I don't know if there's anybody except maybe an Ed Cohen who's done over 900 both stances.
Tom Martin.
Okay. So, I mean, there's the very small list. So there's 3 of you.
Yeah. Right. And actually, I don't think Ed ever pulled 900 conventional. I did ask him about it. His best was 887 conventional, I believe.
Okay.
So it might just be me and Tom.
That's insane. So, so let's talk about, you know, as you've kind of drifted, you know, through, you know, your career, you know, how's your philosophy on lifting kind of changed? You know, talk about, you know, philosophy on how to lift, you know, how you were actually, you know, programming, what you were doing in the gym, and, you know, what did you figure out? Because I thought it was fascinating that you figured out that you were just good at sumo, but your sumo would move because your conventional would move. You know, was there any other revelations like that? You know, how did we kind of get to where we are?
You know, so I've always just tried to be as resourceful as I can. And this is like one thing that I tell new lifters is that there's a lot of good information online, and you can teach yourself a lot of things if you just kind of use what you have available to you. So probably the first info I started getting was from Mark Bell's YouTube channel. Because I mean, even 5 years ago.
Well, hold on a second. Let's make sure we recorded that. Go ahead, say it again.
Oh, I started getting the first info I got for powerlifting was on Mark Bell's YouTube channel and with Ed Cohn.
There we go.
Yeah. They're the deadlift tutorials with Ed Cohn. And actually you were in one of those videos, Jesse.
Yeah.
And I remember I watched that video like several times, and I was always just trying to learn everything that Ed Cohn had to teach as far as technique and training philosophies and stuff. So I've always been real big into, you know, just learning as much as I can and then just applying those things to myself in the best way I can. So, you know, I guess that's always changed. Cause like in the beginning, you know, maybe right out of high school, I'm like a lot less beat up than I am now, and a lot less experienced. But so I would just kind of go in and just lift as hard as I could and eat as hard as I could. So I knew from the beginning that the effort was kind of like the key point, you know, so I always tried to do all the right things outside of the gym and whatnot. And at the time, I really didn't know what I was doing as far as powerlifting training in the gym. You know, I just knew that if I had pushed myself like a little bit every day, then and do all the right things outside the gym and stay consistent with it, that, you know, I would keep making progress, which I was for a little while. And then, you know, you kind of get to a point where you have to be a little bit smarter with how you train. Stop taking like, you know, not too heavy too often. So I've definitely learned that lesson over maybe the last 2 years. Things have changed a lot in regards to, you know, how often like I train heavy and how I train and stuff, you know, just to try to preserve myself a little bit more, stay a little healthier, not feel so terrible every day, you know, when you go to bed.
So you mentioned doing, you know, a lot of stuff outside of the gym, you know, to make sure that your stuff inside of the gym is gonna, you know, be at its best. For a younger lifter and for someone who's coming up, that's like about as ass backward as it gets. Who taught you that you needed to eat, you needed to sleep, you needed to be, you know, have some mobility and stretching? You know, where did that come from? Because that's something very unique to, you know, lifters in general, and very specifically newer lifters who are, you know, who are making a lot of progress. You know, they're going to focus all their energy on the gym. You know, where did you come up with, how did you figure all of that stuff out? Because that's you found the Holy Grail first, man.
Yeah. Well, I would say like I just heard the eating thing from all the bodybuilders. Like, you know, it's just it's always just been kind of obvious to me that if you want to get big, then, you know, you have to eat a bunch and whatnot. And, you know, and once you actually start like applying these things to yourself, then you can actually see how helpful they really are. And it kind of helps keep you on track to just keep doing it more consistently and stuff. So, hey. So yeah. Where was I at? Yeah. So, sorry, I got lost.
No, we're just talking about, you know, how you figured out, you know, how important diet and stuff was, because that's usually something people figure out either, you know, halfway through or, you know, at the end of their career. You had a leg up on everybody figuring that out first.
Yeah. So, you know, it's always just been a matter of like kind of forcing myself to eat as much as I could, because it's one of those things where you notice it a lot more on the days where you don't do it as well. So, you know, you see the benefit, you benefit from it every day that you're training if you're eating and sleeping the way you need to. But as soon as you don't do one of those things, then you really notice how much it was actually like helping you out. So, and it's just the quality of your workouts is just so much better if you like kind of do those right things outside of the gym, like the eating and the sleeping and stuff. So, I guess just from like, you know, experiencing the benefits of it for myself is kind of, you know, what kept me sticking to it. Because I mean, now it's to the point to where if things aren't right in the kitchen, then I can't make any progress at all.
So you talk about Yeah. So you talk about kind of forcing yourself to eat. And I remember, talking to you about trying to ways to get your calories up and, these things, what's the most obnoxious and grossest thing that you've done in order to gain weight? Because, in high school, you mentioned, you're, 161 and, you had, I think your first world record was 181 or was that 198?
198.
198. Yeah. And I mean, and then we've, got you all the way up to, a little bit over into the 220s here, even like 230 at one point. So, I mean, that's a massive amount of, body weight. What did it take for you to kind of put that on? Because, I mean, you are a tall, skinnier kid and, you've had to work very, very hard. Can you give us some, some bulking tips or some, horror stories?
Yeah. So, I guess if you're trying to bulk up, calories are going to be the big priority, but you don't want to just eat like completely terrible either. So I like to have like, a good mix of both. I kind of treat it like what a mom would tell a little kid. It's like, okay, you can have dessert, but only have to eat like all your dinner. So, if I eat all my good food for the day, then, I let myself kind of eat whatever else I want. But one of the more recent strategies I've used for trying to get more calories is like blending some food, which like sounds disgusting, and everybody I've like told about it just thinks it sounds so terrible, but really it's not that bad. And so, I mean, because I'll just blend up like rice and chicken or something like that and mix it in with some broth, and it's not that bad. And instead of it taking me like 45 minutes to eat all that food, now I can drink it in like 10. So I'm also saving a lot of time. And since it's blended up, it feels like it also digests like a little bit easier too. So I don't know. I feel like there's just a couple benefits to it there, other than it potentially being gross.
That's something that Blaine Sumner's done, and I'm blanking on the guys, and like he does all those chicken shakes too. There've been a couple of people who've done that, so I think that's interesting that you kind of found your way, around back to that. So we've talked about you kind of as an athlete. You've also started to take on a lot of clientele as a coach. Talk us through kind of, how you're, how all the experiences and lessons you've learned as an athlete has helped you kind of grow your kind of own clientele and your own little powerlifting team. Because you got some people who are, specifically some females who are actually deadlifting extremely well and extremely strong. So, I mean, what are you, what are you doing with them? How did you come to those conclusions?
Well, I guess one thing that's always been really important for me is to, if I'm going to teach somebody something, then it's important that I've kind of been there myself and, been through it and was able to be successful in the same thing that I'm trying to teach that person. So I knew a long time ago that like I kind of wanted to, maybe train or coach people someday. So I knew then that, well, for one, I need to give people a reason to want to work with me. So, I need to maybe prove myself a little bit. I need to show them that I started here and now I'm here and, I can, potentially help you do the same thing. So I tried to just learn as much as I could through my experience that I've had with myself, because I guess there's only certain things you can learn through trial and error in the gym, beating your head against the wall over years and years, trying to get, PRs and stuff. So, and I feel like that kind of helps me set people on the right track just because, I've like been in their shoes. I know what they're trying to accomplish. I've been there, done that. So hope that answers that a little bit.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's extremely important for, coaches to have, under the bar knowledge, you have the book knowledge and you've proven that you know what you're talking about, but you also have done it on the platform. So
right.
Let's transition real quick. We'll keep your coach's hat on as we're here. Give us your 3 biggest, best go-to exercises for your deadlift or your clients' deadlifts.
Okay, can this be like deadlift
Anything
variations?
Anything you want, man.
Okay, or does that have to be like an accessory movement?
No rules. Do whatever you want.
Okay. Well, let's see. Probably start with, and this is just going to be based off more recently, maybe stuff that's been different than what I've said in the past. But, I really like conventional deficit deadlifts. Like, I think that's just always going to work great if you find a way to implement it into your routine. And then one thing I've been liking a lot more recently over the last year and a half or so is conventional block pulls. Like I noticed that helped my conventional deadlift out a lot. So, you know, those two things I would just say I just absolutely love. And, you know, I hope I get to keep doing them for a long time. I hope they keep working forever, but I'm sure one day they'll stop working. I'll have to like look for something else. And then also good mornings, like with the SSB, you know, a good morning of any variation. You can start with them at the pins and, you know, go up from there, or you can start at the top and go up and down, or you can put bands on them. Like there's just a bunch of different ways to do them. And I really like those a lot. So that would be my 3.
How about 3 things that either 3 exercises that you hate, 3 mistakes that you see people making, or 3 things that just drive you crazy when you see things on the interwebs or on the grams, you know, people deadlifting, and, you know, I'm sure you get tagged in a whole bunch of shit. What makes you shake your head and what makes you bang your head against the wall?
Hey, hush. So one thing that I see is like maybe people try to really complicate things too much. Or it'll be like a new lifter doing like some sort of crazy lift variation, you know, instead of just doing like regular deadlifts. Because I feel like when you first get started and, you know, for a long time, you can just like strategically program regular deadlifts and like it's going to work for a while. So, and I feel like I see a lot of people kind of, you know, it's good that there is all this information out there, like I mentioned a second ago, but sometimes it can be like a bit of an overload, maybe for people that are kind of just getting into it, you know, because maybe like the things that I need to do now aren't what I would have somebody who I've just started with doing, you know, because you need to get, I feel like you need to get as experienced as you can with the, you know, the regular movement itself. And then once that stops working, then you can kind of start, you know, changing it up a little bit, like with a different variation of that lift and whatnot. So, yeah, I guess that's always been a pet peeve. I feel like a lot of things just get overcomplicated when it comes to lifting weights.
Yeah.
And another thing that kind of irritates me is like when somebody says that this way is like the best way, or like, you know, you have to do it this way, or something like that. So,
yeah. So many ways to do it, and it's been proven over and over again. Those people who want to die on a sword are always just such a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
So it's you know, we've had the pleasure to talk to Matt Wenning, had the pleasure to talk to Ed Cohen, and now with yourself and, you know, Stan Efferding as well. You know, all of you guys, all-time world record holders. You know, and all of you amazingly kind of have the same mindset of just like, hey, you got to take care of business. You got to work hard. You got to do this thing. You know, what else would you kind of attribute to some of your success as far as, you know, mindset, getting on the platform, you know, understanding, you know, the discipline that it takes to be an all-time world record holder and to go after those sorts of numbers, you know, because, you know, it's not a normal thing to say, oh, I'm going to deadlift 970 today, or this is my goal. I'm going to break this record. I'm going to go head to head with so-and-so and, you know, who seems unbeatable and do this stuff. You know, a lot of people are having trouble just starting. You know, people are asking, you know, what's your why to get moving? You know, what was your motivation to go out there and, you know, set your sights on something and a couple of records that are, you know, very hallowed in the powerlifting world? You know, how did you get there? What's your thought process?
I guess I'll answer that with a question.
Deal.
A question for you. What
Okay.
is your favorite? What is your favorite thing to do?
My favorite thing to do? I love coaching right now.
So is it hard to make yourself be motivated to want to be a better coach, or do you kind of just find it naturally? Like you just want to pursue it because you really like doing it, so you really want to be good at it?
Yep.
Yeah, it's kind of the same way with this, and I feel like it's like that with anything. You know, it's been easy to push myself. I mean, it's not always easy to push myself, but it's been a lot easier to push myself to be successful at this just because I like it so much. And it just makes me, you know, feel good about myself, and it's just fulfilling, and I like being strong and stuff. So that's probably the best way I can answer that. And as far as like the world records and stuff, you know, I just did them because, you know, I was able to. If that was something that I would never even get close to reaching, you know, I mean, I would still be lifting like the same way that I am just because it's what I do. It's what I love doing. So
when you started getting into things and, you know, you talked about pulling 7, you know, kind of for your first time, did you ever have aspirations like, oh shit, you know, I think I want to do, you know, I think I can break some all-time world records?
Once I got to 800, because the process going from 700 to 800 was fairly quick, and I was like, well, maybe in a couple of years because I've been looking at that all-time record list for a while, and then once I got to the 800 deadlift, I was like, well, you know what? Like, I think maybe in a year or two I could maybe snag a couple of these. I didn't really know at the time, I didn't want to get overly ambitious or anything, or be unrealistic with my goals, but I just figured I would try as hard as I could, and I figured it'd be really cool if it happened one day, and if it does, cool. If it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be.
Well, that's incredibly humble, and I appreciate that about you. Just kind of just getting out there and kind of working hard. When you broke your first all-time world record, when you got the down signal, what's the first thing that went through your head? What was that feeling like, knowing that you had accomplished something that no one else had ever accomplished at that weight class at that point?
I guess it was really crazy, just because it was my first, the first time I'd ever done it. And it was just like a very surreal experience to me. Because even the morning of that meet, I wasn't like, I knew I wanted to try to break it, and I was like, kind of felt like I could, but, I still wasn't sure like how the day was going to go. So, I was kind of just, worrying about it all day, getting worked up for it, like in a good way. And then once I finally did it, it was just like, it was a really, really great feeling. And I immediately was just like, all right, well, what's next? I would say within like a couple of days of writing that victory, I was like kind of getting ready for the next one,
That's awesome. So talk to us about, you're again, one of the few people who has, taken that chip on their shoulder as a sumo deadlifter and, turned it around and turned it into a big middle finger for a lot of other people out there. How did you deal with all of the sumo is cheating, those types of people on the internet? Because there's a million of those people, and I watched you kind of go through all of it. What did that feel like? Because half these people can't even deadlift 400 pounds.
Yeah, and I think just knowing that kind of helped with my attitude towards it anyway. And then just since I've always been pretty decent at pulling conventional also, I didn't really let it get to me too bad. In the beginning, I would maybe like argue back against people and like, try to say stuff back to them or whatnot. But one thing that probably helped me the most was that I realized that I never got comments like that from anybody who was actually like pretty strong. It was always like just some whatever guy, really weak, didn't really have good lifts or anything. It seems like that's usually where the comments would come from. So, it's hard to take comments like that seriously if it's not from somebody you know or care about or look up to.
Right. But I do know, how good did it feel, to pull over 900 conventional, to literally and quite figuratively shut everyone's mouth up for good?
I guess it felt pretty good. And that was probably my favorite lifting accomplishment I've ever had.
Wow.
I would say.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I would say so, just because I do like the conventional deadlift. And I mean, I do feel a little bit better about pulling conventional than I do sumo. And yeah, I don't know. I don't like sumo that much. If I'm being honest, I kind of I'm stuck with doing it because I'm a little bit better at it. So
yeah. So you're also someone who, again, who's been able to pull both conventional and sumo at a high level, but you've also traveled and you've done it. You haven't done all the meets in your backyard and you've gone over there. Talk to us about, your Russia trip and, going over there and going head to head with Yuri, kind of that whole experience. How was that?
That was pretty crazy. That was like one of the funnest things I've ever gotten to do so far in my little powerlifting career, like for sure. And I didn't really know how it was going to be like when I got over there. So this is actually the first time I'd ever left the country. So, I take this super long flight out there. Maybe it's like one of the flights is 9 hours. And the next one's like 2 or 3 hours. So it's like, you're taking all day to get there. Then Yuri comes and gets us from the airport. He picks me up and takes me over to my hotel and whatnot. And then I have about like 4 days between by the time I got there to the competition. So, me and my girlfriend, we just kind of like went around Moscow and just explored around for a couple of days, found places to eat and stuff. I tried to get adjusted to the time difference because that was tough. Because I want to say they are 8 or 9 hours ahead of where I am here in Texas. So it's 2:30 here in Texas right now. It's like 10:30 over there right now. So that was pretty tough, especially, you know, during the day. I mean, you want to like stay up all night, and then you want to sleep all day, and it's really hard not to if you don't have anything to like go do. So it's really hard to like make yourself actually just stay awake all day and just wait till the nighttime. So I kind of got adjusted to that okay by the time the meet rolled around, but even then it still wasn't really like enough, just because I hadn't really you know, done it right, you know, catching up with the jet lag. Because I remember even during like halfway through the meet, it was probably about 4 or 5 in the morning in Texas time, and I remember like almost falling asleep between like one of my attempts. But it affected me a little bit, but I'd say overall the meet still went like pretty good, just because, you know, the way they had it set up was a little different than what some of the big meets are here. You know, everybody like pretty much had their own monolift to warm up on in the warm-up area. The warm-up area was huge. You know, we had these nice Alico platforms to use, just everything that we needed and whatnot. And then the meet was just really exciting. The announcers were really loud. They had like bleachers for the fans and whatnot. And they just made everything seem like really, really epic over there. So it was definitely a fun experience.
All right, so we got a couple questions left here before we get you going.
Okay.
And it's going to be, you know, a question that you can politically answer, or you can just go ahead and straight up answer. How much do you really think you could have pulled on those circus weights over there, the WRPF meet, given the chance to do it? And given the chance, because I know you kind of had some, you were ripping your hands and everything. You know, what do you think you could have actually pulled over there on those plates?
I mean, if I was like a little bit more fresh, I would say like, I mean, are we talking about then, like that day?
Yeah. Or,
Okay.
I mean, then, and, you know, what do you think you could ultimately pull with that certain setup?
Okay. And actually, like, I don't think they liked that I had made comments about the weights and the bar and stuff after I did the competition. I remember talking about that last year and whatnot. But anyway, so that day, you know, I had missed 970 like twice, and then just because I am not used to training that way. So that's one thing I want people to understand is like, yes, like you can get a benefit from it, but you kind of have to be used to training on that, on those bar and plates, because, you know, if you're not, the whip at the top feels completely different than regular calibrated plates feel. So you get a lot more bend and more assistance off of the bottom, but then it's a lot more unstable when you go to lock out. So it's really easy to fall forward, especially in a sumo stance. And that's what had happened to me on the 970 attempt, because I did all my training on just regular calibrated plates. You know, so I lose my balance on the 970 and it falls forward. And then on the next one, I was trying to do it a little bit more careful. So by the time it got up past my knees, I start reeling it in slow. And I was actually, you know, I was good for it. I was actually going to get it. And then I get the down command when I'm like, you know, not even like standing up all the way. So I don't know if that was like on purpose. Hard to say now, but I feel like I could have been good for that 970 that day. And then maybe if I got used to it a little bit more and had a good training cycle, I definitely believe I could pull over 1,000 on those plates. It helps at least 40 pounds, I would say. Once you start getting to like the 900 range, I would say I get about 40 pounds out of those using a bigger plates.
It's amazing. Well, hey, we're doing something here where we're trying to, you know, get kind of message like Matt Wenning gave to you. You know, we have John Wellborn coming on, you know, for our next guest, fellow Texas boy. You have any questions or anything to say to John before we kind of send you off for the rest of your day?
Yeah. So I asked him, so what is it that makes Texas so great? Like, why is it that we're all just a little bit better here than everybody else at everything? So I don't really know why that is. I just know that that's just kind of a fact. So
you know what, out of all the things that we've talked about, all the world records and everything else that you have, that's the most audacious thing you have to say about Texas is just so much better. And I really appreciate that about you, Kaylor. You're, you know, an incredibly down-to-earth guy, really, really smart, you know, well-educated, both, you know, in the books and under the bar, and, you know, very, very humble for all your successes that you've had, you know, under the bar, you know, as a coach and doing everything that you're doing. You know, you're a dear friend. We really, really, you know, are super happy to have you here. Want to say thank you again and wish you the best of luck. And everybody who's on here, for markbell.com, if you liked this, let people know about us. Send us a question. Let us know. We're going to keep doing this for the Super Friends series. Kaylor, always awesome to talk to you, brother. Take care of yourself. Let's chat soon. And for everybody else, see you down the line.
Well, thanks a lot, Kaylor. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, brother.
Cool. Peace.
Okay. Do I leave now?
Yeah, I got you. No worries, man.
Okay. Okay.
See ya.